This is the Answer Your Unique Calling podcast. This podcast provides tips, tools, and inspiring stories for creating clarity around your calling, opening your heart to infinite possibilities, and enabling you to have the greatest impact on the world. I'm 𝙙𝙤𝙙𝙪 Crosson-Hill, a certified spiritual life coach, meditation teacher, human design specialist, and founder of 𝙙𝙤𝙙𝙦. And most recently, I've joined the faculty at 𝙙𝙤𝙙 Academy Coach Training. It's my mission to teach and guide others in living a spiritually aligned life that answers their unique calling. Welcome, and thanks for listening. Hi, and welcome to today's episode. Today, I'm really pleased to be talking with a very special guest, Silvie Peric. Silvie is from a small town in Germany and has lived in Los Angeles, California since 1996. Her desire to offer assistance in difficult life circumstances is a result of her own struggles and revelations over the course of her life. A near-death experience in 2013 unraveled her previously held perception of the world and her place in it. She learned to discover the difference between an egocentric and superficial way of living and a spiritually grounded, compassionate, and empathetic way of being in the world. Breast cancer in 2016 further deepened her search and discovery of the purpose and gift of life and her own place in it. Silvie holds a master's degree in psychology with a focus on the spiritual mind-body connection from Columbia University, New York City, and is a certified spiritual life coach through the Life Purpose Institute in San Diego, California. And Silvie has a quote here from Wayne Dyer: "The greatest joy comes from giving and serving. So replace your habit of focusing exclusively on yourself and what's in it for you. When you make the shift to supporting others in your life without expecting anything in return, you'll think less about what you want and find comfort and joy in the act of giving and serving." It's a beautiful quote. Hi, Silvie. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Hey, Julian. Thanks so much for extending this offer to me. I feel very honored to be part of your podcast.
Well, thank you. So, we like to talk about how people discover and sort of answer their unique calling, their spiritual purpose on this show. And so you've taken kind of a long route, and I know we'll talk about it later, but you mentioned a near-death experience. There was a movie that you made, a film that you made, and now you're doing life coaching. So, tell us a little bit about how you kind of got to this place where you've started taking on spiritual life coaching clients.
Yeah. So I think, like you said, it was a long, winded road. And I think it truly sometimes, I think it depends on how we come into this world, how far we have already understood awareness and gained awareness in either prior lifetimes or what our basic understanding is. And I think for me growing up, I was completely unaware. I lived a very entitled, egocentric lifestyle that was not about what can I offer, how can I be of service, but rather how can I get more. And that was enabled at home, in romantic relationships, in my career, to the point that it became so much of an ego identity that I didn't know that there even was a different way of being. I sometimes think deep down, everybody potentially knows what is right or wrong, but may just not have any understanding how to even get to what is right. And so that near-death experience, it was a culmination of panic and anxiety around a situation where I felt that hard-built ego attacked. And it culminated in a panic attack on a freeway going 90 miles an hour. And I went into this space of, again, it's hard to explain in words, of just pure peace and light and calm and safety. And I think as I awoke out of it, with the paramedics there, and nothing had happened to me physically, but from that moment on, everything started to unravel. And it was not an easy unraveling. It was a It was a time of intense guilt, of shame, of how I had been. And it ended in a realization, which maybe some of you know the book or the short story of Leo Tolstoy, with the main character Ivan in The Death of Ivan Ilyich. What if my whole life had been wrong? That is a question that he found himself with on his deathbed, and then he died. And for me, after all this unraveling of how I had lived my life and how inauthentic it had been, I found myself also at that crossroads. And there was a time I actually did contemplate no longer remaining in this physical body. But my mom was there. She had flown in from Germany, and she asked me if I knew that God gave me this life as a gift. And so I was willing to entertain the thought of it, but it took years of not just therapy, but reading, intentionally deciding that I wanted to find a way out, and consulting with spiritual teachers, spiritual literature, God, nature, the universe, to then, which to me was such a blessing. And I know it sounds probably weird to many people, but the diagnosis of breast cancer for me was not only a gift of understanding that life is really the biggest gift in itself, the ability to physically be alive, but it was my gift to finally be strong, to finally no longer be entitled, but say, you know what, this was my challenge. Nobody could help me beat it. I had to do it. And so the gift for another opportunity at like Life 2.0, to live authentically and to live in reverence of life, to live gently, to live sincerely. I think now, breast cancer was in 2016, now 6 years into it. I think that has recently, really just more recently, helped me arrive at what Lao Tzu calls one of the four virtues. I think the last one is to be of service to others, because how can you not, right? Because we have received a gift, just like in normal life. If someone hands you a gift, and you really love that person, you say thank you and you want to give a gift back. And so being of service to me now is the only way to move forward. And the realization of that really was so freeing and so liberating, to be allowed to become a vessel for source, for spirit, for God's love in how I interact with anyone, really.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I always say that that's really what answering your unique calling is about, is finding your life purpose, finding that area where all your talents and your strengths kind of come together, and then like taking that into service and being of service. And so I just really love that you included that as a big part of your process. So you made a film, right, for I think YouTube, or at least it's still available on YouTube. And so tell us a little bit about the film that you made, and what kind of triggered that happening.
Yeah, so it became my thesis project for the degree that you mentioned earlier for Columbia, the spirituality, mind, body degree I did. It came about, so I was diagnosed with breast cancer in November of 2016, and I felt immediately this incredible peace and this desire to really take this on. And everything, with the appointments, with the different medications at the time I was then supposed to take and was taking was very standard. And I felt very at peace with what was going on. And then there was, I want to say it was probably in March or April of 2017, where just right before I started chemotherapy, you have to go through different tests to see if your certain levels are high enough to now take chemotherapy. And one of my liver values was incredibly high. And my oncologist was on vacation. So just a nurse was there, and she did not know how to explain the high liver value that I pointed out. But she also became rather fearful about it, to the point where she suggested an ultrasound now of my liver. And to me, in my limited knowledge of oncology at the time, ultrasound meant tumor detection. So my brain went into overdrive, and I thought it was no longer just stage 2 cancer, but stage 4. And so to wait for the ultrasound and the result would take around 5 days. And the next morning, I found myself sitting at the ocean down by the sand, and that's how the short film starts. It's because I was overwhelmed with an incredible question. What if I could never touch sand again? What if I could never touch water again? What if I could never smell the sun, touch my skin? It was this incredible feeling of, did I do it enough? Did I do the things I could be doing enough? Did I ever even appreciate touching grass and what that feels like? And so I suddenly had this desire to communicate the importance of living life and appreciating every little thing. And so at first it wanted to become a short film about surfaces, about everything that you could potentially tangibly experience on the palm of your hand. And so I sat with the idea, and I had that time, then that summer I flew to Germany, and I had written something in the plane that later became the narration for the film. And then one morning, after I had returned that summer from Germany, I think it was in August, I knew I needed to tell my story. And I'm not having anybody from Hollywood at my fingertips, of course, and I still don't. It's a joke. I put an ad on Craigslist and I said, I need a spiritual cameraman. And next day I had 40 responses. I met with the one that seemed energetically to be in alignment. And 4 days later, with the help of friends, the universe shows up when something needs to take place. So it really came together in an unexpected, beautiful way. And it was literally, for me, my attempt to say what I felt I wanted people to understand about life. And it almost was like, if that's all I could do and then I would no longer be here, that would have been enough. And I felt very at peace with it afterwards. It's called Beyond Physicality, You Are Whole. Because to me, at that point, I already had that insight and that feeling of, once you no longer define yourself or look at how others define you, by your race, by your gender, by your weight, by your intellect, by anything physical, if you can see beyond that place and be in that place of pure love, that's where you are whole. You don't need any external circumstance to confirm that wholeness.
Wow, what a beautiful message. That's amazing, Silvie. You mentioned earlier that before all of these experiences with your health and with the near-death experience, how you were so living for ego and, sort of taking life for granted in a lot of ways. And, now you've really stepped into this place of service and answering your unique calling. And I find, when I work with clients and we talk about this process, there's so much fear and doubt around how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to support myself? And just staying rooted in that mindset that, love and acceptance and peace and all of these things that we lean on when we answer our unique calling. And there's so much that pulls people away from that. And so I'm curious, do you find yourself being pulled out? And when you do, what do you do to kind of come back to that place?
I think we as humans, if we didn't get pulled out sometimes, it would be weird, right? So I think for me, experientially, I knew that 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready to offer what I'm offering now, because a lot of it still existed in theory, and I wasn't, in the sense, aligned with what I would need to do in terms of even surrendering to the universe in order to do it full time. Mm-hmm. Because I would potentially come then with expectations to life about what this offering even should entail and how I should get paid for it. I would basically have given it, I would have had an expected outcome. It wouldn't have just been the doing that was satisfactory, but I would have needed, if I do this, this, and this, okay, then I'll do it. But I think now and maybe it is a step-by-step process to step away from the financial career that we all, have, the corporate career, or the, a non-spiritual career, if you will. And to gradually see how much in alignment we can be with being in full acceptance of, if nothing comes in return in the immediate, to stay with it, to go with it, to not be attached to outcome, but only to pour ourselves into giving, into the doing, and from that derive the sense of fulfillment that often a corporate job wouldn't even come close to giving us. And, sometimes it might be what I'm currently doing, because I am still working full time, but I have removed to a very large extent my ego from what I try to do when I'm in meetings with people. I try to be of service to everyone that I work with at work. And not so much as I'll do everything you tell me, but rather how can I diffuse this argument in this meeting? How can I shine light on maybe what somebody's too afraid to say? How can I maybe not raise my voice in irritation, even if my ego side would want to? So those are things I think we all can get our toe wet with in trying to practice these the virtues of 𝙩𝙬𝙬 in our normal corporate careers, to be in reverence of life, to be sincere, to be gentle with life and with others. And from that, I think naturally then comes an understanding energetically of the others as to who we are and why they might consult us. And so very slowly, ever so slowly, we then realize that we're capable. And then I think the financial element of it, sure, it's important. I'm used to a certain salary, and I know I couldn't the first week of only doing spiritual consulting or spiritual coach, I couldn't make that. But then there might need to be an understanding within me that what I will get from it, though, is much more valuable than financial means. And so that's where I am currently at, to feel out what that would look like.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of like highlight a couple of things you said there, because I just think they're really powerful, and I want to kind of call them out for the listeners. You know, first of all, there was that not being attached to the outcome. You know, you just do it out of this sense of love and of service. And of course, when you put that energy into the universe, you're being and vibrating at a different level, and the universe responds back. And of course, money is just energy as well. So that energy, you know, will eventually flow. But I really loved what you talked about. You know, I think when people are starting to make that transition, and part-time they're doing this spiritual work, and part-time they're still working their corporate job, they're almost two different people. And what you're really saying is you've got to be the same person, even in that corporate job, that you're being in your spiritual business. And I just think that's really, like, really amazing that you called that out, because that's just a beautiful way to view it. And I don't think that's something that occurs to people. And it's harder to make that transition when you're still getting wrapped up in the ego and the office politics and everything else in your day job. And then you're coming out in the evening to be, you know, do your spiritual work. And it, you know, it creates a place where, you know, Minerva, my mentor, Minerva Maharaj, just recently did a thing where she's talking about consistency. And if you're not manifesting consistency consistently, it's because you're not consistently being in that vibration. And, you know, I just think that you really highlighted that there. So, you know, thank you for that. So you're doing spiritual coaching now, Silvie, and I'm curious, like, who are the people that you help? Who would want to work with you, or what kinds of issues would someone have that you would be able to help them with?
Yeah, so I guess there are two primary groups at this point. I think it started with, you know, friends who, as part of the coaching class, the course that we took, had started taking, where I was practicing with them 2 years ago, who then, you know, saw value in it and also shared it with some of their coworkers, particularly around, you know, how to deal with stress in terms of how do you stop overthinking. Who is this source? How do we even find it? What is my place in finding it? Is there a book? Is there a list of things I can just do? You know, it started with work-related stressors that they wanted to get more insight on. And then there's, of course, people that I have been in touch with through previous support groups that I was in for breast cancer, where we have now started, you know, dialogues around both in groups, but also in one-on-ones around, you know, how can an illness, how can suffering be viewed as a gift? Of course, there needs to be a lot of, you know, space initially after first, you know, you receive the shock, you deal with the immediate elements of what that entails. And then once I think certain things are more settled, you can take a look at what is there a message here? What might that message be? How does this situation fit into the overall narrative of my entire life? And have I maybe not seen things in the past that this is now just a culmination of? So I'm trying to really look at the whole life story and all the elements that may have happened up until now. What were those highs? What were those lows? What were the perceived highs? What were the perceived lows? Because oftentimes we label something a low or something negative, but then when you really look at it, with someone who can help facilitate the looking at, you understand that those lows were actually catalysts. Those were the greatest gifts. And that changes then a little bit the mindset around, oh my gosh, why did life just do this to me? But rather, how can this be now an opportunity for something? So that's kind of those two groups of coaching. Yes.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a lot about like changing that sort of like victimization, like life is dumping on me mindset to, I'm still here and I get to do all this great stuff. And this is an opportunity for me to re-examine my life a little bit and sort of really see what's important.
Yes.
If someone else listening is in this process of re-examining their life and saying, I want to be of service in some way, but they just don't really like know how to be of service. They haven't really found their thing. What would you tell someone like that?
I think it's what we both spoke about just a few moments ago with, if you want to be of service, first, I think, are you, because I wasn't a year ago, are you able right now to embody what that feeling feels like? Because knowing in theory what being of service means is one thing, but it's not until you fully understand vibrationally, energetically, from your heart, what that would feel like, that you can then be successful at doing it. Of course you can. I'm not saying you can't be successful in just saying, for today I want to be a good person today. That is already a very basic first step at wanting to be of service. But I think what I do in the mornings nowadays when I wake up, because with all that's going on in the world, to first establish when I wake up, maybe if I've had a dream, maybe I know the next meeting is in half an hour, to take a moment and to vibrationally realign myself with what it is that I want to feel like. But that I needed to establish first, what is that I want to feel like? And then to establish a discipline around vibrationally starting your day in that mindset. That in itself, I think, isn't just something that just happens. You have to work at it. Being of service requires work on yourself too. And then as you go about your day, even as you're at work and you're in your current work still, continue to embody that. And if you find yourself throughout the day, because that happens quite often, that you're being pulled away from that because maybe you read something on the news or somebody says something at work or you witness something that is making you react in ways that are not in alignment, of course react, of course say what needs to come out, but then make a conscious choice to realign yourself so that you don't lose the mere thing that you're wanting to be of service with, which is your energy and your love and your peace. So I think everybody can practice that. And from that, I really, truly believe will come more and more the understanding as to how specifically can I then apply that now in a service. Maybe it's the way you are already being a mother. Maybe you fine-tune that. You find different ways of improving on that. Maybe you're a teacher and you just become this teacher that is not just of service with, lesson plans, but with being that mentor to somebody. I think in every job you can find that other element to it, that depth, that empathy and compassion element of it. And then once you're ready to fully take on a new service offering, then I think you have used your current work or your current situation as a playground, as a practice ground. And then the other thing is just, I think, a natural evolution. And we should trust the process. We should trust life to guide us to what that might be.
Yeah, that's amazing, Silvie. I don't think I've ever, of all the people that have been on the show and all the people I've talked to, I think you're the first person to sort of say, practice answering your calling and showing up in the right mindset and in the right vibration at your job that you have now. What else would you like to say to our listeners?
I think, and I didn't think of that even for myself prior to saying it now a few times. Cultivate discernment. Cultivate what it is that you want your alignment to be like, and then cultivate ways that you remind yourself of that and get back in alignment with that. I think that's a wonderful way for me that I now have started my day with, and do check-ins with myself throughout the day. Don't be afraid of not knowing a purpose, not knowing what your service offering should be, or that you need one and you don't have one, and only enjoy the opportunity to see what life will bring to you as you practice this alignment with what you for yourself really want to feel like and embody.
Thank you. That's a beautiful message. So Silvie, for the listeners that want to get in touch with you or possibly work with you, how can they find you?
They can find me on my newly created Instagram. It's just Beyond Physicality, or beyondphysicality.com. That's my website. Great.
Thank you so much for being here today. I've really enjoyed catching up and talking to you.
Thanks so much, Julian.
Yeah.
It was an honor to be with you in this half hour.
Are you a soulpreneur? You've answered your unique calling by starting a spirituality-based business. Maybe now you find yourself overwhelmed. There's so much to do for your business and so many things you've never done before that you need to learn how to do. With an ever-growing to-do list, you may feel like you'll never get everything done. Decisions become complicated and you may feel like you need to work all the time. Even worse, our old friend imposter syndrome hooks his head up. You struggle with your pricing, and every business coach on the planet wants to sell you a marketing system. I've been there. It's why I've created my Soulpreneur Energetic Success Program. This coaching program helps you use your human design, storytelling, ritual, and transformational coaching to build your soulpreneur business. Discover how to make the best decisions for you, how to find the most aligned action to take, overcome imposter syndrome, confidently charge what your services are worth, and move forward with ease and grace. Visit my website, www.𝙙𝙤𝙙𝙦.com, to schedule a free intro call.